Like some of you watching out there, I first got into the hobby as a kid. I think I was about 10 and I was absolutely blown away by the displays that I saw at a Warhammer store in my local mall. I'd always loved lizards, so I started collecting lizard men. Many of the units were simply out of my price range when they came in blister packs of a few metal miniatures, so I mostly stuck to the plastic skinks and Saurus warriors. For whatever reason, I eventually fell out of the hobby, probably around the age of 15. I think I painted a few things here and there until I was about 18, but that was it for around 10 years. Then, in 2019, I was playing Warhammer Total War 2, and I was playing as the Lizardmen army. After sinking a few hours into the campaign and delighting in seeing vast numbers of dinosaurs riding dinosaurs, I decided it was time to reacquaint myself with the hobby. At this point it was September or October and the Lizardmen Blood Bowl team had just been released. I figured this would be a good point of re-entry because 1, these guys were still Lizardmen living in Lustria rather than these weird Seraphon things, living in, I don't know, space or wherever Seraphon live, and 2, there was only a few miniatures in the box, so I wasn't signing myself up for a huge project. Incidentally, I did end up signing myself up for a huge project with the Blood Bowl miniatures and still haven't painted all of them, so maybe that should be one of my goals for this year. Anyway, it's been over a year since those miniatures first arrived and I really started to try and learn how to paint and convert them as well as I could. I mean, this video's come out a bit late. I planned it for a few months ago when it actually was a year since starting, but now it's going to have to be 5 lessons that I learned from a year plus a few months more of returning to the hobby. Lesson number 1, you can't do everything. I have a list on my computer with all the hobby ideas I've had since starting, all the minis I want to buy, and all the conversions and dioramas that I want to build. Now there are so many cool miniatures being produced today, and when you add in the possibility to customize them and situate them in environments of your own design, there is an infinite number of cool builds and paint jobs for you to fantasize about. Unfortunately, we do not have infinite time. So, I recommend writing down your ideas. Every now and again, I'll go through this list with fresh eyes and think about which ones I prefer, and which ones I would do if I had the chance. Maybe find some that actually don't sound that good after you think about it, or maybe some that are similar enough that they can actually both be collapsed and captured within the same idea. When your hobby desk is clear, you'll be able to go back to that list and pick the ideas you've prioritized as the most worthy of your time. However, keep in mind that some of the ideas in that list are going to have to wait for a long time and they may never be realized at all. Lesson number 2, beware of scale creep. Now this is a trap that I have fallen into over and over again. In fact, I would say it's a particularly sharp vulnerability of mine. Like I mentioned earlier, I started out just buying a Blood Bowl team and planning on painting them up. Then I decided I wanted to complete a diorama of a Blood Bowl stadium with a bunch of spectators and vendors and details galore. That project is not complete. In April of 2020, I signed up for an Instagram challenge where you builded and painted a little warband and a villain along with an environment for them to all face off within. This turned into Mr. Toad, Corona Man, and the Lizard Mansion. This project is not complete. So if you're anything like me, then be careful that any project you sign up for doesn't balloon out of control. Or if you're okay with that, then just adjust your expectations and your schedule appropriately. Lesson number 3, maintain diversity. If you're anything like me, then you can get bored or tired of a project if you have to spend too much time on it. The excitement fades and you find yourself unwillingly beholden to the whims and desires of your past self. It's much harder to motivate yourself when a project gets to the point where it feels like a chore. So having a few different projects on the go at once then can allow you to move between them when you get a little tired of one. So, sick of painting something to display quality? Move on to that batch painting. Sick of scraping mold lines? Build some terrain. If you're like me and you work on a lot of large projects, it's also a good idea to have a few single miniatures here and there that you can work on and that will go from start to finish in a few hours or a few days, depending on how much time you want to invest. A little palette cleanser can go a long way to refreshing your hobby and rekindling the excitements you once had for those bigger projects. Lesson 4. It's okay to take a break. There have been points in the last few months where I did very little hobby. Maybe I got very busy with my studies or household chores and life admin, or maybe I got engrossed in some other form of entertainment like playing Nier Automata. And during these times, I would sometimes worry that I'd lost the fire for painting and converting, and that all my miniatures and supplies were going to remain neglected. What a waste of time, and what a waste of money. But don't get sucked into these feelings. Just because you're not hobbying all the time does not mean that you'll never hobby again. Now, if like me, you returned to the hobby after some many-year hiatus with a newfound passion, then shorter breaks here and there to enjoy the other parts of life are not going to be a problem for your long-term hobby growth. Lesson 5. This hobby is incredibly rewarding. As you know, 2020 was defined by the global pandemic. We were all confined to our houses as going out was either unwise or prohibited. I can't believe how lucky I was to rediscover my passion for sitting by myself for hours, throwing my energy into a craft mere months before everyone found themselves stuck inside. And heck, the pandemic even inspired some of my hobby. Now, people in the miniature painting and building hobby are, for the most part, a fantastic bunch. They're generous with their praise and helpful with their criticism if you seek it out. I've met people through sharing my hobby that live all over the world and consider myself very lucky to know them. Oh, and if you're wondering what I've been working on in the background of this video, it's part of the Blood Bowl Stadium diorama that I mentioned earlier. It's a brawl breaking out between a Saurus who's had one too many and some Noblars and a Skaven, with another Saurus trying to hold back his buddy from making too much of a mess of things. This year I want to make some more progress on this diorama, but I'm not holding myself to any deadlines that might suck the fun out of the project. I'll work on it when inspiration strikes. And as I mentioned earlier, just because you take a hiatus on a project doesn't mean that you'll never return to that project. I've got a good feeling I'll make quite a bit of progress on this in the coming year, but I guess we'll find out. Anyway, I am the good dude, this is the good mood, and I will see you in the future.